Okay, we're just going to start with some simple differentiation. Okay, so if y equals x to the 9, then dy on dx is equal to, the 9 comes down to multiply, and then it's to the power of 9 minus 1. So that equals 9x to the 8. Part 2, y equals 4x cubed, so dy on dx, and that can be stated as y dash as well, is equal to 4 times 3, because the 3 comes down to multiply, x to the 3 minus 1, which equals 12x to the 2. Okay, part 3, y equals 6x, y dash is equal to, that's like saying x to the 1, that comes down to multiply by the 6, and you're left with 1 minus 1, so it's basically 6. Because x to the 0 is 1. Part 4, because it's a constant, there's no x's involved, dy on dx, or y dash, is equal to 0. Okay, part 5, so we've got a negative 5 up the top here. We just bring that down as normal. So f dash of x is equal to negative 5x, and we're still subtracting a 1, so it's to the negative 6. Now we don't want to leave it to the power of negative 6, because this is actually a denominator. It's like saying 1 on x to the 6. So we finish off by saying on x to the 6. So here we just want to rewrite it in the form of having the x above. So that equals x to the negative 3. There's no difference between those two equations. So now we go ahead, f dash of x equals, that comes down to multiply at the front, negative 3x to the negative 3 minus 1 equals negative 3x to the negative 4. And we don't leave it like that, so f dash of x equals negative 3 on x to the 4. Part 7, f of x equals, that comes down in the front, so it's 1 on 6x to the 1 on 6 minus 1. Now that's like saying 6 on 6. So f dash of x equals 1 on 6x to the negative 5 on 6. Now we don't leave it like that. So we've got x comes down the bottom because of the negative. We've got 1 on 6x. Now it's to the power of 5, but it's the 6th root. So it's like that. Okay, part 8. So we need to put this in a better form. So it's actually 2x to the negative 3rd. So f dash of x now equals, this comes down the front to multiply by the 2, so it's negative 2 on 3, x to the negative 1 on 3 minus 1, which is 3 on 3, equals negative 2 on 3, x to the negative 4 on 3. And then finally, f dash of x equals negative 2 on 3, because this puts the x down the bottom, x to the 4, and it's the cubed root. Dy on dx is equal to, bring this down to multiply, so 4 3s are 12. X, now you got to the power of 3, so you're left with 3 minus 1, which is 2. Then this comes down to multiply, so you got negative 2 2s are 4, and you're left with 2 minus 1, which is x to the 1, which is simply x, and then that differentiates to 0. So this is your answer. Now number 2, f dash of t is equal to, bring this down to multiply, so it's 6 times negative 4 is negative 24 root 2, t to the negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5. And that equals negative 24 root 2 on t to the 5. Now before we do this, we need to get it in a better format for differentiation, so it's 4t cubed minus 4t to the half, which is root t. So f dash of t equals, bring that down to multiply, so it's 12t to the 3 minus 1, which is 2. Bring this down to multiply by the 4, which makes it 4 divided by 2 is 2. T to the half minus 1, which is the same as saying 2 on 2. So f dash of t equals 12t squared minus 2t to the negative a half. That equals 12t squared minus 2 on root t. Alright, finally we're going to find the second derivative, the change of the rate of change for each of these functions. So f dash of x equals, bring this down to multiply, so it's 30x to the 6 minus 1, which is 5. So f dash dash of x is equal to, bring that down to multiply, so it's 150x to the 5 minus 1 is 4. Now looking at part 2, so this is like saying 6x to the 1 comes down the front, so dy on dx is equal to 6 ones 6x to the 1 minus 1 equals 6x to the 0, which is just like saying 6, because anything to the 0 is 1. So d squared y on dx squared is equal to 0 because 6 is a constant. Okay, moving on to 3, f dash of x equals, you bring this down to multiply by the 6, which leaves 3, x to the half minus 1, which is 2 on 2, to get the same denominator, equals 3x to the negative a half, which equals 3 on the square root of x. To do the second derivative here though, we use this here, not this one. We need it to be in this form with x up the top. So the second derivative, you bring this down to multiply, so it's negative 3 on 2, x to the negative a half minus 2 on 2, which is minus 1. And that equals negative 3 on 2, x to the negative 3 on 2, which equals negative 3 on 2, x. Now it's to the 3, but then it's a square root because of the half. So that's f dash dash of x, the second derivative. Okay, so part 4, y equals 20x to the 4. So y dash, that's another way of saying dy on dx, equals, you bring this down to multiply, so it's 80, 20 by 4 is 80, x to the 4 minus 1 equals 80x to the 3. So y dash dash is equal to, bring this down to multiply, so it's 240x to the 3 minus 1, which is 2, so it's x squared. Finally, part 5, f dash of x equals, that comes down to multiply, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so it's just simply x to the 2 minus 1, which is 1, so we just leave it as x, plus, this is like having a 1, so it's 4 ones when that comes down, so it's 4, x to the 0, which is just 1, so it's 4 times 1 is 4. And because this is a constant, it's 0, so that's the answer for the first derivative. And then f dash dash of x, the second derivative, is simply 1, because this is like a 1 comes down to multiply, x to the 0 is 1, and that's a constant, so the derivative of a constant is 0.